Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the Business Plugs Mixer. Hi, my name is Linda Murray Bullard. They call me the Business Plug, and you've just joined the Business Plugs Mixer where we come on Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, to have business conversations with business people for business people. So go ahead and share, click into notifications so that you'll know when we're on, but you're going to lean in. Today, we're going to talk about how can you get your business more views? Like how can more eyes and ears get on you and your business or what you're doing in your community? What would it be like if you had your own TV show? Ooh, that sounds interesting, right? So that's what we're doing. We're talking about that. But before we get there, let me get out of trouble. So if you are looking to have your business ready for funding, I am offering capital readiness. It is a one on one, you and me, working to get you ready to get certifications, to get government contracts, to get grants, to get loans, to get funding for you and your business. So capital readiness is designed to get all the pre-work done. A lot of people say, well, can't get that capital, or I don't have access to capital. There is capital still out there, regardless of what you hear. There is capital still out here and people are getting it every day. So why shouldn't you? So get in my wherever you're watching this, in the description, there is a link for you to do a direct with me. Also, if you would like to be on the Business Plugs Mixer, come on and join us. That link is also wherever you're watching this. Go ahead and share it on your page. Tell your friends, tell your family. I have Dr. Jacqueline coming in, and she's going to tell you about how you can get on TV. Get on TV. You're your business. Here we go. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to my stage Dr. Jacqueline. Hey.
Hi.
How are you? How are you? How are you?
Well, I am well, Miss Linda. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on this show.
Absolutely. So tell them, who is Dr. Jacqueline?
Ooh, okay. So it's been a long road to get to where I am today. Um, I originally started out as a confidence and success coach, and I had a show or have a show, and it was basically to give women an opportunity to come in to talk about themselves,
Mm,
and to talk about like all of the things that they've been through, their journey, and how they got to where they are today, which
yeah,
is, self acceptance, running their business, and just basically living the life that they have designed for themselves.
all right.
And and I still do that today. I love it. I love hearing, I like, meet new people, hearing their story, and ending up with different tips and tools, actionable steps, right? That
That's
people can actually start and begin using. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Profession wise, I am a licensed clinical social worker. So whenever everybody hears that, they're like, "Oh, you're a therapist, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much."
you are
So
a problem solver, a solutionist.
they say, even though yes, I do help people, make better choices, but really it's about helping that individual to find their own way, to be able to,
Yeah,
because ultimately everyone knows, I don't know what's best for you. Ultimately, you know what's best for you.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just kind of helping people through that process.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
So that was kind of the start of my business in 2016 up to today. I continue to interview women on my Eight Queens Roundtable show and podcast. I do a annual, well, it was a 3 times a year, but I broke it down to annually now. It's a quarterly symposium, leadership symposium. And that, as well as the show, centers around personal, professional, and leadership development, primarily for women in business, basically to help them scale.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty much where I am today. I am a published author. I was the visionary for Born to Lead, Awakening the Leader Within. That came out September of, I believe it was 22.
Oh, okay.
And as of June of last year, I'm the proud owner of Realizing Your Potential TV network.
I love that. I love that. Yay, yay,
You got
yay. So
that.
you've been doing this a while. This is not a fly by night, one shot in the dark kind of
Mhm.
thing. You've been working and building and scaling this for quite some while to
Yeah.
help women. And why do you think that you selected women and not just
Mm.
everybody?
Okay, so when I initially started, my passion was I was going through some different things, some different troubles in my own life, right? And I had to really kind of take a step back and just really kind of reevaluate things.
Hmm.
So it started by me thinking about over the years, personally, professionally, and dealing with women, and especially women of color, how the lack of self esteem and self confidence
Hmm.
permeate throughout our lives, right? And
Yeah,
really impact our everyday lives, the
absolutely.
relationships that we choose, whether it be intimate relationships, whether it's friends, family, staying in a dead end job, basically shrinking down, all of those
Hmm.
different things. When you really begin to peel back that onion and look at the core of it, there's work that needs to be done on self esteem and self confidence.
Yes.
So I started thinking about how I had done that for myself,
Hmm.
actually rebuilt my self esteem and self confidence. And being a woman, I figured I'm more qualified to help other women.
Okay.
Not saying that men can't benefit from the services,
Right.
or that they don't need to increase their self-esteem. But, and because it started by me telling my story. When I tell my story, I'm a woman, I'm an African American woman, and I feel more qualified speaking to, other African American women, and
Yeah.
especially like in my age group,
Yeah.
because nine
Absolutely.
times out of 10, it doesn't matter where we grew up, and I'm just really focusing on within the United States.
Right.
Regardless of where we grew up, there's so many commonalities that that we just share in common. So that's why.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that you're basing it on what has happened, like what you've already seen happen in your own life, right? And I love that you are talking about, because there are actually studies that talk about teen girls need, that 9 to 12, 13-year old who needs more reinforcements of self-awareness and self-assurance and self-confidence, right? A lot of us didn't get that. Our parents didn't know. And that I looked at a young lady who was talking about her relationship with her daughter, and she talked about, I she said, my daughter suffered because I didn't know she needed what I didn't have.
Mhm. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's
Like I
powerful.
felt that, right? Because when you have your kids, they don't come with a manual, first of all. So
Yeah.
there's not no, there are people who speculate and say, well, by this age they should be doing this, that, and the other. But when you're in our communities and you are having commonalities, as you said before, that in how we were raised, right? We were taught you have to be 3 times better. You have to study 10 times harder. You have to be a certain person. You have to show up a certain way. And that was ingrained in us as girls. As boys, they were told to be tough, you're brave, you're this, you're that. And so they had a different raising. And in the same house, you can have as many different raisins as you have children. Like,
Yeah.
so even there's that, that dynamic. So just honing in on the fact that as African American women, we were not taught to be courageous. We were not taught to be mindful or brainful. We were taught cook, clean, and make the house pleasant and the kids quiet till he come home. But
Hmm.
then life happened, and now we have to go out and earn livings. And that one study said 72% of us are leading a single family house, single parent house. Like we have to be everything to everybody, and then there's nobody there for us.
Right. You know how many times I've sat and interviewed women,
Mm.
and the commonalities, I'm just going to kind of piggyback on some of the
Yeah.
things you shared earlier about being seen and not heard. We were
Yeah.
supposed to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
You know, being taught that our needs don't matter. And of course, they didn't come out and say, your needs don't matter, Jackie.
Right.
They didn't say that, right? But that's what was demonstrated.
They
You know,
downplayed them.
I watched
Right.
my mother, I watched my aunts,
Yeah.
my grandmothers, right? Put everybody else before themselves.
Yeah.
You know, their children,
Mhm.
their husbands, family members, the church, the community.
Yeah.
Everybody else goes before us. So I would say and if not, let's say out of 10 women, at least 9 of those women, when I asked them if you could speak, you know, like if you can, what's the question? What advice would you give to a younger version of yourself? Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, they say to basically do me, you know, not be concerned with what other people think of me, or not allowing other people, like our parents, our family members, society, push certain things onto us.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, this should make you happy.
Yeah.
You know, some women are happy, you know, only
Yeah.
for the family. And and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing.
Because that's your choice.
Right.
Not somebody else shoving that down your throat, telling you, you know, you need to be happy. Just doing this here. You know.
And I think when we get around 50, there's a light that comes on that says, you know what? I have served all I'm serving.
It's like at 50 though. Why do we have to wait so long?
Because we have to wait till those kids get grown. We have to wait till they get grown, and they take a long time sometimes.
But
they can't find themselves.
I got a 14-year-old, but I'm hearing a lot of women say, even when the kids get grown, they still be there calling and I want this, I want that. Sometimes even moved out of the house and back in the house. You can't get rid of them. I'm hearing.
But see, I haven't had that experience. All mine, by the time they moved out, they were ready to go.
Oh, okay.
They were like, okay, we'll visit, but we're not gonna stay with you, lady, because you crazy.
Look, right. I'm gonna make this a crazy, uncomfortable environment. So what you don't want to get up out of here.
Yeah, I have boys, and they were like, man, let me get out of here. I think my middle one said, well, Mom, when we get grown, do we have to visit you? Well, so I haven't had that comeback problem, but I mean, and all jokes aside, it's just that once they get grown, like I dedicated my life to my boys, but then when my youngest one got, I think 16, I was like, wait a minute, he's developing his life and he's going to leave. So I'm going to be in life alone. What does that look like?
What does that look like? Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't have a husband or you don't have a significant other and you have things in your life that you have wanted for life, for the longevity of your life, then that's what I started doing is I started reclaiming those things that I had, those dreams that I had. Like I wrote a book and put it in the Library of Congress at 53. Okay. But I had that book in my life. I had that book in my heart for 20 years.
Yeah. See what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? That was God's timing. That was your timing. That was when it was supposed to happen for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do believe that. I got my MBA at 57.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but these were things that I wanted much younger, but I couldn't find the space in my life to put them.
Miss Linda, you don't even look like you over 57.
Honey, I'm 65.
Oh Lord. Okay.
Thank you. This is a 65-year-old lady here.
Okay.
But I look at all the things, and that's one thing I was talking to my son, my oldest son, when we were looking at a house that he was getting ready to buy. And I asked him, you know, what one regret did he have? And, you know, this guy's been all around the world. He's been in the Navy, you know, he's in the fire department. He's a battalion chief now, but he wasn't back then. And I asked him, what is one thing that you regret about your life? And he said, Ma, I think I started too late. Okay. And I hadn't started yet.
Okay.
So I was thinking, okay, I need to get on my grind, right? And one thing that really catapulted me into entrepreneurship, into home ownership and things, I found my great grandmother's information on one of the DNA platforms, and learned that she owned property and was a entrepreneur after my great grandfather passed. But I saw her record, them coming out of slavery, being married 57 years, and her, running a boarding house, and all these things, and owning the property. I've actually stood on the property that she owned, and didn't know that I was that didn't know the backstory at the time. But once I learned the backstory, I was like, well, who am I to let her down? Like, she won't drop, her legacy won't drop on my side. Not during my time.
That just kind of moved me. Woo, okay. Sometimes I have moments, I guess, and I think sometimes, like, going through menopause, it's like I don't know if I'm gonna be hot, cold. Just, y'all don't mind me. But you know what, Dad, did you see the Self-Made,
Yes.
about the Madam C.J. Walker?
Yes.
Now, I knew about Madam C.J. Walker before, but I'm telling you, and this is kind of, I might be going a little bit off topic, but I know
No, you're fine.
You'll will me back in. When I start to feel defeated, because there's moments.
Oh yeah. Say that.
When I look at Madam C.J. Walker and what she accomplished, during that time, I say, Jackie, listen, let's get it together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, maybe I do come from a family of entrepreneurs that I don't know about. But that's nothing that I've seen in my immediate family too much.
And here's the thing. So I took a trip to Africa because I found that my mother's DNA was first found in Cameroon.
Okay.
And so I asked God, could I go? And one of my white friends texted me and said, God told me to tell you, you need to get to Cameroon.
Okay.
And she didn't even know I had that prayer out there.
No.
And so I actually went to Douala in Cameroon. But there I felt like being able to put my feet on the soil of my ancestors reconnected me. But what I learned about my stay in Africa is, if you don't have some type of entrepreneur spirit, you're either working for someone or you're doing your own thing. But they woke up every morning and turned their houses into storefronts.
Okay.
Like, they were selling. So the entrepreneurship in all of us people of color is ancestral. It's been there because they don't have social programs like we do.
Okay.
And so because of that, the tenacity that you bring to the table is what keeps your family alive. Literally.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's in us. It's in us. Like, they get up every morning, they dress in their finest wear, and they open for business. In fact, my host is Riel Randy. God bless that little woman there. She is she runs a printing company, and she has a whole women's movement. Like, she had 1,000 people following her. And I'm like, do you know all of this can be profitable? She said, well, in Africa, we don't charge Africans.
Okay.
And I was like, wow. But she was like, and she has a whole she's changed her model since then. But she has a whole movement about wife ministry.
Okay.
And thousands of women go to it, are involved in it.
Nice.
Throughout Africa. Like, she teaches them how to be good wives to their husbands. Okay. It's a whole ministry.
Wow.
But yeah, but she also I was there to speak at a women's conference, and it was to show the women how they could be self-sufficient. And so I went to teach them about SMART goals.
Okay, SMART goals.
And how to put SMART goals in their lives. Yeah, but that was mind-blowing. That whole experience that I got to do that and put my feet on Cameroon soil. Like,
when did you
reconnecting with our ancestry and reconnecting with who we really are, right? Because if you look at the centuries of where man was first found by the Euphrates River in Africa, and you look from there to now, a lot has happened. And when you look at even the 400 years that slavery, the thing with slavery and all of that, when you look at that, that was a blip.
It was.
And so women, you know, brown women, of course, but women, period, it just seems like we need to teach our girls their greatness.
Right.
And in that study, you know, 9 to 12 years old, it's up to us to show them their worth.
Right.
Because again, we came from that you to be seen and not heard group, and you were to be quiet and meek and humble and all these other things. I used to ask the Lord, if I'm to be quiet and humble, why did you give me such a roar? Like, like what? It's not even my character to be quiet.
She said it's not even my character. I know that's right.
But if you check with people who are speakers and you know, orators and those people who talk on their report cards when they were kids, it will say they talk too much. Right. Because that's their character, though. That's who they were built to be. The world wasn't ready. The world tried to put us in a box and tell us, no, you need to know when to talk and where to talk. And but I've heard all my life, your voice carries. I mean, teachers have told me time after time, and I said, pray to God, why do I have this if it's a curse?
Right. Right.
But that's the thing, is the things that we were innately given by God. You are teaching us how to bring those things forward and how to use them to empower ourselves and others, so that we're actually stirring up the gifts that God already gave us.
That's right.
I love that.
Well, that was the whole idea behind the Born to Lead, Awakening the Leader Within, is actually, you know, talking about, because throughout the book, myself and each of the other co-authors, we all use different quotes from, you know, African American women, you know, some that are still living, some that are not, you know, different quotes, but actually speaking to that.
Yeah.
Like you said, that being in our, you know, in our lineage, you know, the whole idea of just being a leader, basically.
Yeah.
And even talking to different women, because I do a Born to Lead docuseries. I had to kind of lost it for a moment. A Born to Lead docuseries. It talks about, you know, when did you really recognize yourself as a leader? Because oftentimes what I've heard from women during the interviews is that, like, even as a young girl, they may have ran a business, you know, a lemonade stand, or I don't know, you know, some form of business.
Absolutely.
Or some form of leadership that, you know, different things that they put together. And that is there, you know, but they just kind of kept it, like, kind of stayed in the back and, you know, behind the scenes, and just kind of kept it at bay, you know. But then, and then hearing them tell their story is just, it's amazing, because it's in a lot of us.
Absolutely.
And we just don't realize it.
Absolutely. Well, life is so noisy that we have kind of muted it in our own lives. Because I used to sell flower seeds.
Okay.
Vegetable and flower. There was a company, and I would sell seeds and then send them the profit, you know, send them the money and then keep the profit. I was 11, 12 years old selling flower seeds. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a whole flower seed rot. But yeah, in Girl Scout cookies, and, you know, one time thought about selling shoes. So yeah, I've always thought about owning or doing something to make extra money. And my father, he always, you know, he always had a hustle. He was either selling guns or selling eggs or taking people to the store or doing something. So
that's a big jump, gun.
Girl, he multi-purpose. It's probably why I can't find one lane to be in, because I've seen him do them all.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, but that leadership, you know, I think that, again, with the whole being seen and not heard, you know, oftentimes it's, well, sit down, you know, you don't need to be doing all of that.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard that
take all that
times. You know what I mean? You know how the kids say today, But what they, whatever phrase they had for back then, but basically you're just doing too much. You
Yeah.
need to go sit down somewhere. So I just think that a lot of women, have just kind of went somewhere and
Quieting
sat
themselves
down.
down. Yeah.
You
Quieting
know,
themselves down so they can fit in and be
they can
palatable
fit
for
in. Yep.
people that are not like them.
Yep.
Like, and again, me being this rump rowdy thing that I was born to be, I had never understood why I didn't have the same filter that other people had when it came to like, what you shouldn't say that, or that's too loud, or always too loud, always too much, always. But then at this golden age of 65, I'm just telling people, look, I'm for the extra. I'm gonna do extra. I'm gonna be extra loud, extra me, extra. Just
Right.
it's not gonna fit everybody. I
Right.
get that. It's not gonna fit everybody, but for the ones who it does fit, those are my people.
That's right.
Those are my people.
Right.
And so anybody that's trying to quieten you down. So I like that you have the Queen's table. So talk about the Queen's table. Like what is that like?
So it originally started at, and I called it the A Queen's Round Table because I was thinking, a queen having a round table, bringing other queens to the round table to basically talk about different things that are important to us.
Yeah.
So that was the whole concept. Like I said, from when I originally started, but when I originally started, it wasn't specifically for entrepreneurs. It was just, women, actually primarily African-American women initially. Then I kind of switched over maybe about 3 years in to focus it on entrepreneurs specifically.
Okay.
Right. Because I think a lot of times people focus on, the business strategy, you got the right funnel, you got a website, you got the right graphics, right? But they don't really talk. They kind of push that personal development piece to the side. And the personal development is the confidence, the self-esteem. How do you feel about yourself? Because you are the face of your business.
You're the brand,
So a lot of women, they have these great products, but they're afraid to get out there. They don't want to open up their mouth. They don't want to advertise. They don't want to get on the show and talk about it.
Yeah.
Because they're, they don't feel confident enough to do it.
Yeah. I get nervous on the camera. I get to hear that all the time.
Right.
I get nervous on the camera.
Right. Exactly. And it's like, who does? Because most times, most people don't want the spotlight on them.
Yeah.
Usually, like I said, unless you're like a person that's into drama and,
yeah,
you perform, that's different. But most people, they don't like, getting up in front and talking in front of people. I'll be honest, this is okay. But if you told me I had to go and speak in front of, let's say thousands of people, I'd be like, okay, I would do it. I would make myself do it, but I would be nervous as I don't know what.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would be uncomfortable. That would be a moment of growth because I'd be coming way outside of my comfort zone. But yeah, so you asked me about the Queen's Roundtable. So that's how that started. And then I went from doing not from, because I still do it. I started doing symposiums, and then I would, bring different women in to talk on different topics.
Okay.
Somebody about just anything that you would need to know in the realm of business, like funding or grants.
Okay.
Someone that does business strategy, someone that talks about mindset, someone that talks about, mental health, physical health, things of that nature. And I would put on symposiums, and they would be the A Queen's Roundtable Leadership Symposium.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's pretty much how that started. And and that's what we are today with the A Queen's Roundtable.
I love that. So who should be contacting you?
Okay. So at this juncture, a couple of avenues here. I'm always looking for women to have them come on the show. Right now, I have either a Queen's Spotlight, which is kind of like what you're doing, is spotlight everything about that particular entrepreneur, who they serve, how they serve, and the practical piece of it too, in terms of maybe what were some of your pitfalls and ending up on a educational note. Again, it's very important to be able to take something like one actionable step that someone can walk away with and begin, using right away.
Right.
So I'm always looking for guests for the A Queen Spotlight, as well as the Born to Lead docuseries. So if an individual, because everybody doesn't necessarily feel comfortable talking about leadership. People could be in that realm of leadership, but they may not feel comfortable teaching.
Right.
But if you do, that's an excellent avenue, the Born to Lead docuseries. So I'm at presently doing that, accepting applicants for that. Thirdly, there is, I'll leave this for last. So thirdly, the Realizing Your Potential TV network. I'm looking for show hosts, coaches, consultants, educators, influencers to, have your own show, basically increase your reach. And again, anything under the umbrella of personal, professional, or leadership development to help people scale their business. So those are the main three ongoing moving pieces, I guess, of my business that I'm always looking for applicants. And I have an in-person event coming up.
Okay, great.
This is my first. So when we talk about the A Queens Roundtable Leadership Symposium, this is the first time it's going to be a hybrid event.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be April the 12th from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to, like I said, it's an in-person event, but we're also going to stream live. So it's going to be available for those that may not be able to join us live, but they can still tune in virtually from Realizing Your Potential TV network, one of the streaming platforms, which I love they have. Yep.
Well, I love it. That's great. That's great. So give me one thing as we close. Give me one thing that you would like anyone who's viewing this interview to take away from it.
Okay. So there's many things, but if we're just choosing one item, pay attention to who you surround yourself with.
Yes.
Over the years, I noticed when I started connecting with other like-minded business owners, women business owners, it changed my whole perspective on being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Because a lot of the people that, were around me, not that they were, had any ill intentions, but they just didn't understand, didn't want to understand, whatever the case. But I noticed that when I began to change who was in my circle, my immediate circle, it made a world of a difference. So be very mindful of who is in your inner circle. Yes. And take constant inventory of that. If they're in that inner circle, I'm not saying you got to throw them by the wayside, but everybody don't need to be in that inner circle.
Right.
They just don't.
You have to position people. Right. You have to position. Yeah. You're the CEO of your life. Absolutely.
Yep. And different seasons in your life too, right?
Absolutely. I think of it as books, and in books you have different chapters, and some that start in chapter 1 won't be in the final chapter. And so, you come into your life for a reason or a season, and their time with you may be gone. I used to be real upset about that, but then I had to learn that the chapter moves on. Like the book is still going. So I have to make sure that I've made room for the person that's ready to be in my next chapter.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you got to completely X people out, but again,
it doesn't make them bad people either.
It doesn't make them bad people. They just move them to a different position.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my one, since you gave me one, that's my one takeaway is pay attention to who's in that inner circle. Do regular inventory of that.
I love it. Great advice. Great advice. Well, as we close now, my name is Linda Murray Bullard. They call me the business plug. I just plugged you into the Queen's Roundtable, child, and how you can get on TV. So reach out to her. Her information is wherever you're watching this video, or if you're listening to it on the podcast, her information is also in the description. So stay tuned next Sunday, 7:00 p.m. Eastern time, where we'll bring another wonderful guest. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week on the Business Plugs Mixer. Have a great week, everyone.